Oh boy.
Well, welcome to We Like Coughing.
Hello and welcome to Handgun Radio. I'm your host, Ryan Machad from the wild woods of central Maine, and this is your home for all the news, information, and discussion in the handgunning world. This week, we chat about the guns and some movies that we've watched recently. So as always, Handgun Radio is brought to you by the Firearms Radio Network. Please check out the Patriot Patch Company for their awesome patches and other high-quality items. Visit patriotpatch.co for more information. They have awesome T-shirts and everything else over there. And when you do the Patch of the Month Club, you get these cool artist proof renditions that come on a postcard along with them, as well as a sticker. So be sure to sign up for that and get your patch every month. And they're usually pretty unique. And as always, shop Amazon using our affiliate link, firearmsradio.tv/Amazon. And please help support Handgun Radio. Head over to firearmsradio.tv/pledge and click on HGR. Bunch of different pledge levels over there. We really appreciate it. Weird, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Boy, it's early.
I know. We normally record at night, but we are recording in the morning again. Well, not you. I recorded with Just an Opinion in the morning. So, again, for me, but not for you.
Nice.
So what'd you do this week?
Not a whole lot. Did a bunch of podcast stuff. I was actually just talking to you about the ACP film tracks. We recorded a new one that's going to be released in between when you're hearing this now and when this is released live, which is where we watch movies. Kind of actually ties in with this, where we watch movies and talk about what we're seeing on the screen, and it all syncs up. So you're watching the movie with us. And I was actually talking to Ryan about possibly doing one in the future, so stay tuned.
Yes, it's a very interesting concept, and I can't wait to get that worked out so we can do that.
Oh, my parents have taken my daughter to Bermuda for the week, so I'm going to be able to be getting a lot of work done very quickly, so I'm definitely going to log some range time. God damn it.
Great. Thanks, Weird. Oh, telephone. Oh, so yeah, I got some more videos coming. I had some range time. I did some shooting with the Kimber again, and I put some more rounds through the SIG P226. We've had some really, really great range days here recently. So I've been trying to get out there and at least, put a few boxes of ammo through, keep my eye in, so to speak. Shooting a lot of 22 as well. Now I just got to find some time to clean the guns. But yeah, so that was a really good time. The SIG ran great. The Kimber ran great. Shot great. Everything was a fantastic trip. So you've had no range trips recently, Weird?
Not recently, no.
No,
I've been out of town.
I only get the weekends, and sometimes like something comes up or whatever, so I don't end up going. But
yeah, I like going during the week.
I do have some videos of that awesome 44 Special Smith & Wesson coming up. So
yeah, I've seen the pictures of that. That is so cool.
And then also, did you see the post that I made on the Handgun Radio page of that AR 9mm with the Thompson furniture?
I didn't see that one.
Oh my God. Yeah, it looks so cool. Someone took an AR pistol, I believe, or AR 9mm rather, and put Thompson furniture on it. Let me see if I can find it for you. I'll put it in the show notes.
I'll have it in just a second, but let's see. Or maybe I'm not seeing it.
For some reason, I was like, that's actually really not that bad. I'll put it in the show notes right here. Looks really cool. Has a Glock 33 round mag in it.
And I bet it actually weighs a reasonable amount.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, all that mass and those Thompsons are all in that big blocky receiver.
Yeah, they're so heavy. I mean, it's a cool gun. Like, I get it. But, like, the moment I picked one up, I'm like, geez, this is unpleasantly heavy. Though also, I got to say, I'm a bit bummed about the whole, the Thompson stock is one of the good things about the AR is that inline stock. It'll just magnify the recoil. There's not a ton of it, so.
Well, it's 9mm too.
Yeah, so that's okay. Why did they make it in 45?
And then, do you see the article about the Colt Shields that I posted also?
I have not, but why don't you start explaining to me? Oh, look at that.
So it's this weird looking revolver. It's like pre-Kimber, flat sided. Um, like the sides are flat. It used these special rounds. It was designed back in the days when they were having airline hijackings quite a bit back in like the 60s. And it shot some special porcelain round that was designed to not penetrate the sides of the aircraft.
Mm-hmm.
It was in the infancy of the Air Marshal program, I think.
Yep.
And then I guess Eastern Airlines was they had a security team and they were looking at arming pilots with it. And I guess like the cylinders were disposable.
Mm-hmm.
So if you fired your rounds out of that, you would just have to get a new cylinder. You like couldn't reload it, I guess.
Interesting.
There's an article I linked to. It's on the Firearm blog. I guess there's one going up for auction, but they're really, really interesting looking. I mean, obviously not terribly practical nowadays. I'm sure that you couldn't find any ammunition for them or anything like that. But
well, also the bottom line is that the whole like myth speaking, we're going to be talking about movies. One of the movie myths is that putting a hole in an aircraft is a huge deal. And I mean, hell, just look at the World War II Flying Fortress. I mean, there were dudes with like shooting, Browning machine guns out through a hole in the hull, and they weren't all sealed up.
They weren't pressurized though either, were they?
No, but the pressure difference isn't that big a deal. And actually, I haven't read the story on it real quick, but I actually saw a video on, it was Cody's Lab. He decompressed a glass bottle and had a small hole drilled into it because I guess the ISS took a micrometeor and it put a 2 millimeter hole in the hull. And he's like, oh, could you, plug it with your thumb and have it not be a problem? Yeah, no, it wasn't a problem. So if the space station can get a hole poked in it, granted it's a small one, but a bigger hole would be a bigger problem. Getting a hole in an aircraft is not that big a deal, even a pressurized aircraft. So the idea of going to great lengths for, a 9 millimeter hole in the hull wouldn't be the end of the world.
Right. So what was your drink segment this week?
So, well, it's morning, so I'm drinking tea. Actually, I'm drinking Mio water. They make caffeinated Mio water. It's so good. But I have been drinking this cocktail called the Jack Rose, and it's weird. I had it before, and I'm like, not crazy about it. And then I was drinking one might as well. I've got this bottle of Applejack. I'll go through it. And suddenly I'm just like, you know what? These are starting to hit the spot. Something clicked in my mind. But so how you make it, it's 2 ounces of Applejack or apple brandy, 1 ounce of lime juice, and a 1/2 ounce of grenadine. And and you shake it and serve it up in a cocktail glass. So it's kind of a whiskey sour, daiquiri, gimlet, margarita school of drink, but you're using Applejack. And Applejack is something that maybe a lot of people don't know about. It's essentially hard apple cider that has been jacked. And what jacking is freeze distillation. So what they would do back in the day is you'd have your barrels of apple cider that you've let ferment. And so it'd turn into hard apple cider. And then you'd expose it to the cold winter. And on a cold morning, you would go out and open up the barrel and dip out the chunks of ice, scrape the ice out of it. And essentially you're removing the water from it. And so if you're removing the water, you're concentrating the alcohol. And so you're getting it more and more distilled, so to speak. But that's not done very often because that's actually really dangerous because it concentrates all of the non-water compounds in it. So including the stuff that you're specifically trying to get rid of when you're distilling, like methanol, which is really toxic and really bad for you, and some other nasty stuff. So most of the liquor that's made from hard cider, including I was using Laird's Applejack, is apple brandy. And another word on that, I need to, when this bottle's gone or the next time I'm at the liquor store, I need to look more at the apple brandy section to see what they've got, because I ended up picking up just the standard issue Laird's Applejack. It's not very expensive, but it turns out this is kind of like the Mixto tequilas. It's kind of like the Jose Cuervo of Applejack. It only needs to be 51% distilled from apples. So there's probably some other form of either grain liquor or I don't know, something not impressive that they've mixed with it to round out the product. So I have to see if there's something a little bit better than this. This stuff it's not particularly remarkable. It's kind of appley, I guess. It really tastes like a Canadian whiskey, if you ask me.
Interesting. Yeah, I'd never heard of that freeze distilling.
Yep, that's what they used to do back in the day up here in New England and in upstate New York and various places where it gets cold in the winter. Is just let it freeze, and the ice that forms on it's going to be ice freezes pure. You can also do this as like a survival technique. You could like freeze seawater. If you can get seawater to freeze, essentially you'll get pure water at the top in the form of the ice, and then it'll be brine down at the bottom. So you can actually take a lot of the salt out of water or impurities out of the water because water will freeze relatively pure.
Excellent. So be sure to try that out if you so desire. And with that, we'll head into the main topic, a few good movies and guns.
Mm-hmm.
So we picked a few different movies here that we had watched recently. I don't know if you have watched them recently, but I saw one, or I chose to watch one because I saw it on Amazon Prime. One of our favorite actors, mutual favorites, Robert Shaw.
God, he got taken too early. God, I wish. Can you imagine a world where Robert Shaw lived to a ripe old age?
Can you imagine him like the Sean Connery, like doing Robert Shaw in The Rock?
Oh yeah,
instead of Sean Connery.
The fact of the guy that plays Quint in Jaws is also the same guy that plays Red Grant in From Russia with Love, which, oh my God, if you haven't seen that one, that is one of the best James Bonds ever made.
And he's also in a fantastic movie with Walter Matthau, of all people, who plays against type, I think, because I always knew him as grumpier old men. Here he is playing a transit authority police officer. And
he's... For me, I'm a little older than you. He was always listed as Oscar from the Odd Couple movie. So he's really was always known as a comedy actor. That's where he got most of his acting creds. And later on the Dennis the Menace movies, he was Mr. Wilson. So that may have actually been some of his last movies.
But he kind of, he still has some of the comedy in this movie, but he kind of he actually uses a gun, which I had never seen him use in a movie. So, but it's The Taking of Pelham 123, the good one,
the good one, the one with
the one with John Travolta is
John Travolta is not great. John Travolta uses a car in that one, I believe.
Denzel uses the car.
This is Denzel. I knew there was a car K9 that showed up in that one.
So we got your basic like 70s guns, but all pretty cool. You got Mr. Green. Everybody went by color in the movie, the hijackers. So you got Mr. Green, Mr. Brown. I believe Quentin Tarantino said this movie was what inspired him to use the same naming scheme in
Reservoir Dogs.
But they use a Colt Detective Special. Jerry Stiller, Ben Stiller's father, is a transit authority cop, uses a Colt Detective Special as well. Let's see, a few other cops. But Walter Matthau uses a Smith & Wesson Model 10 snub, which I've always kind of liked the looks of.
Yeah, no, it's a cool gun, and it also it handles really well for just a K-frame with a snub nose. It kind of seems silly, like if you grow up in the world of automatics, where when you shrink a gun down, you're taking down both the barrel and the frame, so the whole footprint of the gun gets smaller. Though actually they did that with a lot of these snub nose revolvers. Well, the frame is the exact same size. They did often abbreviate the butt a little bit and do things to make that a little bit smaller as well. But it's the Model 10 is just a classic gun.
Well, then I'm used to having a K-frame like my Model 66 with a big heavy, it's got a snub barrel, but it's heavy. It's not it's got the lug underneath it. And this one just has like the exposed ejector rod that has the little piece on the end that keeps it stable.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember the name of it. It's a small lug, I guess, at the end.
Yeah, it's just for that little detent at the bottom to click into place.
But yeah, that's always a cool gun. You see that in quite a few movies. People, if you were to look at it, you would think, oh, that's a J frame, and a lot of people forget that the Model 10 was made in that snub nose configuration.
Mm-hmm. But
So
yeah,
yeah, that is an awesome gun. But then
but yeah, this, but also I gotta say for this era from the probably the 60s to the early 80s, like those are the two guns we just talked about are like the quintessential cop guns. Cop almost always is either carrying a detective special or they're carrying a Model 10 and either snub nosed or a like a 3 or 4 inch barrel. Probably more likely 2 inch or 4 inch.
you don't often see the J frame. I wonder why that is.
Um, yeah, I don't know when they really took off. Well, when was the first Chief special? What?
1950, I believe.
Yeah, so I guess it never took off. Maybe it was just that loss of one round is
There's a
they wanted to carry
choice,
six.
few choice movies like The French Connection. For a while, Gene Hackman's using a detective special, or for a while he's using a J frame, and then all of a sudden he switches to a detective special.
Mm-hmm.
I think in the car chase scene. But then you have the quintessential movie gun from all this era, and primarily for one reason: the Star Model B, because it looks like a 1911, but it fires 9mm, which they didn't have. What did they have issues with 45 ACP blanks back in the day?
Yep.
So that is used by Robert Shaw. He uses that at the very beginning and then towards the end, but then it switches to a Browning high power.
Yeah, this is one of those movie switcheroos that happens quite a bit. It was just like in speaking of James Bond in Dr. No, he's carrying, of course, a Walther PPK, but he ends up pulling a suppressed pistol on an assassin in that movie, and suddenly it's a Colt 1903. I think probably because they couldn't get a threaded barrel PPK on whatever notice they had. So, but we got this suppressed gun. So, ta-da! Suddenly he's carrying a Colt.
In Dr. No? Yeah, the FN was it 1910 or something?
It was one of those. It was something on the. I know those guns they're not interchangeable. Some of the FNs and Colts were the exact same guns, just released at slightly different years, slightly different times. But those ones are different. One of them, I think one was striker fired. Either way, it switches over to a Browning gun from a Walther.
The funny thing is, normally when you see this, like the person will have the Star Model B for the firing scenes, and then later on the gun will switch to an actual 1911. It doesn't really make sense him going from the Star to the Browning high power, because the Browning high power is a 9mm too.
Yeah, I don't know. This the one they've got here in the IMFDB, which they say is from the Untouchables, the 1987 Untouchables. You could see that the barrel hood's been ground down to make it to turn it into a straight blowback to make it operate better for blank conversion.
Yeah.
Another thing I heard, we were actually talking about it in the film track, was that also the 9mm guns seem to work better with only minor barrel obstructions to get the appropriate back pressure for blank firing than 45s just needed a more obtrusive blank firing adapter. So I don't know. It could have just been that they had, though this one I don't see that it's a little bit blurry because it's a kind of a mid-frame picture that they have an IMFDB. But it doesn't look like there's too much work that's been done on the locking surface. Though I think the Star Model B, you've taken it apart. Does it have a standard, is it 1911 locking surface, or does it lock on the chamber hood?
I don't recall. I never took it apart. I just shot it.
Looking it up real quick, see if I can find one taken apart. See, oh no, according to this, yep, they're it's got the standard. It looks like it uses.
It looks like lugs on the top, and then
lugs on the top, and it looks like a. I found one here. Oh, that's a different Star. Some of them are brown. There's this one here that's a Browning linkless, but the standard Model B uses essentially a 1911 barrel.
And then as we move down, we have some cool long guns, and well, that's fine. We can talk about these too. The high standard Model 10, that weird looking one with the Ian did a video on it. I don't think it was very successful. The gun, he bought it, I guess, and didn't work out right or something. But some of them had the flashlight, big mag light in the carrying handle, the curved butt pad, and another
and that butt pad could be moved around, so you could either fire it from the shoulder or hook it into the crook of your elbow.
Right. Another James Bond cameo that a lot of people might not pick up on, Inspector Daniels. Are you looking at the picture?
Yeah, which one?
It's the guy talking on the radio under the high standard Model 10.
Yep.
It's another James Bond cameo from Live and Let Die, the guy with the claw.
Yeah.
I can't remember what the hell's his name.
Teehee, was it?
Teehee, yeah.
Yeah.
He's in the movie too. He plays Inspector Daniels. There's a lot of James Bond actors in this movie.
And this high standard Model 10, this is a gun that makes a lot of the bullpup configuration, makes a lot of appearances in movies. Like, I think it's one of those, there are certain guns that, like Desert Eagles, there's so many Desert Eagles in movies, but really, and there's a lot of Desert Eagles out there, but I think that there's more movie stars are seen carrying Desert Eagles than exist in real life. And the same thing can be said about this high standard bullpup. Is it made a lot of appearances in movies in the 70s and 80s, and it was, again, not a very big commercial success. It did not take off. Police did not fall in love with it the way High Standard had hoped. So, but some Hollywood prop houses got a hold of them, and they look cool. So why not use them?
And then the unofficial star of the movie, the Smith & Wesson Model 76. And this is used by all the different hijackers. Robert Shaw describes it fires 750 rounds of 9mm ammunition per minute. So if all of you were to rush me simultaneously, you would all be cut down or something like that. But they all bring them in like flower boxes. And it's a copy of the Swedish K. I think Smith & Wesson copied that, I believe.
I forget which one came first. I know this is the same as the Swedish K, but I don't know who invented. I think
that's being unkind to the Swedish K, from what I've heard.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Swedish K is fantastic, from what I understand. This one was all right, but not so much.
I mean, you certainly hear a lot more about the Swedish K, so maybe the Swedish K was the first one.
But yeah, I mean, it's a decent looking subgun. But yeah, it's like all the hijackers carry one in the movie. Hector Elizondo was in a few other movies. I was like, man, I've seen him like on my mom's soap operas back when I was a kid.
Just looked it up. Yeah, it's a copy of the Swedish K.
Yeah. But yeah, so this is a fantastic movie. I highly recommend you go watch it. It's on Amazon Prime, I believe, right now, or it may be on Netflix. I'm not sure which, but great movie. You will not regret it.
Especially watch it if you've seen the remake with Denzel Washington. Like,
I'm glad I watched this one first, because I don't know that I would have watched the original if I had seen the other one first. I mean, hell, how many movies do you know that have a 100% score on Rotten Tomatoes and an 88% audience score?
There aren't that many.
There aren't that many. So that I wonder what the new one has. 51%.
It was not very good.
52% audience score. Yeah,
but there's a lot of movies that I'm actually a big fan of. If you watch a remake and find it either be good or not good. I know I saw the 2004 remake of Dawn of the Dead, which, by the way, you want to talk about a movie that's got a lot of great firearms, and not only a lot of good firearms, but a lot of good firearm handling.
That movie is good.
There's no Hollywood BS in that one. Like the dramatic uses of indexing your trigger finger on the frame of the gun, like, just like, if you do it, it looks cool and it can be done well. Like, you don't need to have everybody riding their finger on the trigger of a gun. But that one, I ended up watching the Romero one second when actually, and I actually like the remake better for that one. I know I saw the awful Harrison Ford remake of Sabrina back in high school. I took a date to see it, and I was like, what a terrible movie that was. And then realized later on when I started falling in love with Humphrey Bogart that there's a movie and it's Humphrey Bogart and Audrey Hepburn. Absolutely, I want to watch this, and I actually had forgotten I'd seen the remake and saw it and went, oh, that's really good. And then saw the remake and went, oh, I ended up rewatching the remake and it was terrible. So yeah, I always like to go back to the source material if something's exceptionally bad.
So the next one here, Thief. Have you ever seen this?
I have never seen this one.
I believe this is also on demand right now.
Is it?
Definitely go watch it.
Yeah,
It's
definitely. Yeah,
such a good movie.
What is it? I'll look that up. I definitely need to see that. I'll have some time to watch some movies this week with my daughter being away. So instead
it was the first Michael Mann movie ever.
Oh wow!
I knew it was Michael Mann. Film debut of Michael Mann with James Caan as Frank, an experienced freelance jewel thief who is convinced to perform high-level jobs for a Chicago mobster. This movie, I'm pretty sure he sent James Caan to go train with Jim Zbigniew, the guy who does that crazy draw in that episode of Miami Vice.
I think he might even send him to Gunsight. I think wasn't Michael Mann a Gunsight graduate?
I think what happened was he sent James Caan to Jeff Cooper, and Cooper said, why would I train him? I train people who abide by the law, and this guy's supposed to be a criminal. So someone instead, he took James Caan to another instructor who trained him in all the gun handling and stuff like that.
I mean, Cooper's got a fair point.
To do it.
I sometimes see really good gun handling in a movie that goes against character. Would be where would a thief learn to shoot like that?
But then again, this movie was also made in the heyday of the 1911 and Gunsight, and you can see the influence because his pistol is a 6-inch long slide M1911 A1, customized by Jim Hogue.
Mm-hmm.
It's a Gold Cup national match, or use that trigger. Hogue Gunworks modified the pistol by lengthening the slide, squaring the trigger guard, adjusted a Bowmar, added a Bowmar adjustable sight, skeletonized hammer, and beaver tail grip safety. And you see him do stuff in the movie, his handling's perfect. He does a press check, which is the Michael Mann signature. We'll see the same thing in Heat when we talk about that.
Yep.
So he does the thumb in the trigger guard, and it says at the time of filming that was the taught method, but isn't really taught anymore.
No, I mean, it's violates the safety. And that's actually one of the reasons why I am so in love with forward cocking serrations on guns, because that's my preferred method of doing a press check, is bringing your hand up underneath the front of the trigger guard and gripping onto the front of the slide and pushing it back. And you can also do that if it doesn't have any serrations. It's just a whole lot easier if it does.
A couple other things. Well, a couple things. Go ahead.
I know you were doing the Michael Mann press check for some guns at the NRA show when we were there last.
Just to mess with people.
Yeah, they don't have firing pins. It's all good.
And then there's a few other things that you could see, like the training that James Caan went through. He does the Mozambique drill, so 2 in the sternum, 1 on the head. That's another Michael Mann signature in his movies. And then changing out the magazine. There's a scene at the end of the movie where he goes to reload. He only fired 5 or 6 rounds, so he has 1 or 2 remaining, and he just swaps out his mag right there before slide lock. He shows all the reloads throughout the entire movie.
Yeah, and I bet you could probably count all the rounds, and it all adds up.
It'd be pretty close, I would imagine.
As opposed to the, I know, speaking of Denzel Washington in Book of Eli, I know he's got a H&K 45 that holds at least 23 rounds. It's pretty impressive.
And then there's a Smith & Wesson Model 19, one of my favorites, used by Robert Prosky, who's also in another movie we're going to talk about. Classic gun. All these just old classic. Model 19 snub. So basically, my Model 60.
I'll tip my hat a little bit. The movie that we're going to be releasing for Film Tracks for our the ACP patrons is Runaway with Tom Selleck, and in that, Tom Selleck gets attacked by a robot with a Model 19. It's pretty cool.
Scroll down to the high standard Model 10, the one that we talked about before. It's also
Yep.
used in this movie, but look at who's using it.
Dennis Farina.
His first acting role.
Yep. Well, I think Michael Mann picked him up because he was a cop. I think it was kind of like Arlie Ermy in Full Metal Jacket was, all right, well, this guy's a Chicago cop and he's knows a lot of stuff about things. And we're going to hire him as a consultant. And you know what? This guy's pretty good on camera. So let's get him in. And
he ended up using him in Manhunter, and I think which I think was his next movie, as Jack Crawford in the whole Hannibal Lecter canon.
Yeah, I forgot Manhunter was Michael Mann.
Yeah, Manhunter, because it's that movie Red Dragon is a remake of Manhunter, except
Correct.
Liam Neeson was super creepy in it. Manhunter is actually a fantastic film too. The guy from CSI there, William Peterson, is in it.
Yep. And Brian Cox as Lecter.
Yes, which was also really good.
Yeah, he was a very, very good Lecter.
And then in that one, I think Jim Zavenya's in that one as well, and he gives there's a little speech where he hands William Peterson a Charter Arms Bulldog and tells him he's got these Glazer safety slugs. And he explains them to him and everything. Kind of oversells them a little bit, I think, but
yeah, I mean, this is
at the time they were probably like state of the art,
and we didn't really have the testing that we had back in the day, so stated lines, just how you going to back it up? Do they work the way that they're supposed to work, or do they just cause road rash? Which is, I think, were they blue tips or gray tips? I think they were blue tips
in the movie. Yeah,
so blue tips. I've often heard the wounds created by the blue tips as being road rash. They definitely do not penetrate much at all.
Have you seen this next one, Hoffa?
I have not seen Hoffa either.
You should also watch this one. It's one of my favorite movies, just because there's so many cool guns. It happens over the course of like a long time. So it follows this character played by Danny DeVito, who ends up becoming Hoffa's bodyguard. Spoiler alert. And it starts in like 1935. Mm-hmm. It's told through flashbacks, but it's really, really well done. And like in the beginning, Robert Prosky, we were just talking about him in Thief. He's using a Colt News Service in 45 Auto, which is just super cool.
Yeah, that's a classic old war horse.
I mean, all these older movies, like, it seemed like they did a lot better job back then getting the proper guns, probably because there were just more of them floating around.
Yeah,
when they were made.
So the Colt News Service, did that actually get worked in during the 1911 shortage during World War One?
I believe so. It was a 1917.
I know the Smith & Wesson 1912? What was the Smith & Wesson 45 Auto?
1917.
1917.
Yeah, both of them were.
Okay, yeah, they're both 1917. Okay, yeah. So they and it was just the Colt was cranking them out, Smith & Wesson was cranking them out, and just keeping up with demand.
But I think this movie was made in 1992, but I mean, still, even those older movies, you had there's a Colt Police Positive. There's one point in the movie where Jimmy Hoffa gets up on the side of this truck and this guy pulls out this really tiny looking revolver. You scroll down there and I was like, man, what is that thing?
Well, those old pencil barrels just really, and looks like it's almost like a 3-inch gun. The barrel's an odd length.
And then, of course, it's the flashback. It's told in flashback, so the movie's set like just before Hoffa meets his whatever end he met at the Red Fox restaurant or whatever. And Danny DeVito. It's funny because Danny DeVito plays his bodyguard. He starts out carrying a certain gun and moves on, and so throughout the movie, you see when he switches firearms, and it's kind of cool because as the era changes and new guns come out, and if you know when the guns come out, you can see his character was somebody who kept up on the latest firearms and let's get the latest and the greatest. And by the end of the movie, he's carrying a Smith & Wesson Model 19 snub nose. Mm-hmm. But at one point, he's carrying a J frame. At another point, he's carrying a Detective Special. So he's carrying a Detective Special in the I believe the flashback is in the 40s. And then he starts carrying a J frame when it moves to the 50s. And then in the 70s, he's carrying the Smith & Wesson Model 19.
Yep.
So as it moves throughout, Smith & Wesson Model 38, that's what he's carrying at, there's one point where it's set in like the 50s or a little bit later on, 60s maybe. At one point he's carrying a 1911, shoots a deer with it actually, and said that he skinned the deer with a nail file because he didn't have a knife. And then Frank Whaley, the actor that plays an assassin in the movie, he's in a bunch of other stuff too, isn't he? Let's see. He's in JFK.
Okay.
I thought he was in more. I think he's in more TV shows. But yeah, it's a fantastic movie. If you haven't seen it, you should go watch it. It's really quite good.
I'll put that on the list.
John C. Reilly's in it.
He's a rangy actor. Most people don't give him the credit he deserves.
All I see is Dewey Cox whenever I see him in a movie. And J.T. Walsh, I forgot that he was dead. He was in a bunch of movies too. He was in The Negotiator. He died really in like the late 90s, I think.
Did he? I was actually not aware of that.
I wasn't either. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, really? He was in a lot of fantastic movies.
He's in A Few Good Men.
February 27th, 1998.
Wow.
He played a lot of like good, like sleazy characters, like business type characters.
Mm-hmm.
I think he was in Breakdown too. But yeah, no, definitely go watch Hoffa. Fantastic movie. I'll let you do this next one, The Maltese Falcon.
All right, this is one of my like perennial favorites. I think it was 1941, and Humphrey Bogart, Mary Astor, Peter Lorre, Sidney Greenstreet. It's got a really good cast, and it's based on the novel by Dashiell Hammett, and it's a good book, but the movie it holds up. I think it doesn't really feel as very dated, despite it being an old black and white film. And in it, actually, interestingly enough, Bogart he's seen holding a 1911 on the cover. In the movie poster, but he never actually carries a gun. He says at the very, very beginning, I guess some spoilers. It's one of the very first scenes. His partner Miles Archer gets shot down by a Webley Fosbury, and shows Bogart can show you, yeah, it's a Webley. They don't make them anymore. And they ask him if he's got any guns. He's immediately suspected for the murder. And he says, yeah, we got a few around the office, but he says he doesn't usually carry one. So the other two guns that appear in the movie, well, there's actually two 1911s carried by Elijah Cook Jr. He's the bodyguard of Sidney Greenstreet, and he carries a pair of 1911s with the hammers down in his overcoat pocket. And Bogart gets his hands on them a few times. And the other one, which actually amuses me so much, and that was one of those like, aha, gun moments, is Peter Lorre is a very interesting character, Joel Cairo. He carries a Colt Vest Pocket 25. And when that gun comes out, it ends up getting knocked onto the floor, and there's a really good close-up shot of it. And I looked at it and went, oh man, that one's newer than mine. So you've actually shot an older Colt Vest Pocket than the one Peter Lorre was carrying.
Yeah, and you're like, and everybody that was in this movie is all dead now.
Yes. I don't know about Mary Astor, but I think, yeah, everybody else, I mean, they're all smoking cigarettes like fiends. So it's only so long you can behave like that.
So many good guns, though. I still want a 25, even though it's totally impractical.
Yeah, it's especially when you realize how much the ammo costs.
So Ronin, this was one I threw in because I liked it. You were like, I don't really know if I could get into it. How many times have you seen it?
I think I've only seen it once. I think I saw it in the theater, and It didn't. It just didn't knock my socks off. But I've got a copy of it upstairs. I don't know where that copy came from. I might have bought it, or my wife might have bought it. My wife might have seen it a few times and really liked it.
So you should watch it again. See if you have any different opinions on it now.
Yeah.
However, I want you to explain this to me because I'm not terribly familiar with it. The M1991A1.
Okay, so this was released in the 90s. I don't know if it was actually released in 91, but essentially Colt started producing a more of a budget model 1911s. They were, I believe, parkerized instead of blued, and just had some slightly lesser plastic grips. They're not bad guns in any way, shape, or form. Like everybody I know who has one is totally fine with it. They cut some corners where they could cut corners to make a slightly updated and more value priced 1911. This was, I got to assume, they came out around the same time that the Plastic Fantastics started showing up, and Glocks were so inexpensive when they first hit the market that their competition had to come up with it. It's, I think, kind of similar to where the Car C series comes through. The original cars were very expensive guns for what they were, but they were also the only gun in that lineup. And then suddenly when other people started getting into that lineup, well, we got to cut some corners where we can afford to cut them so that we can meet demand and have prices that are a little more on par with what people are looking to spend when they go into a gun shop.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but he carries, Robert De Niro carries one in the beginning of the film, and then he switches to a SIG P228, which he uses for the remainder of the film. Pretty good gun handling by Robert De Niro as well in the entire movie. Jean Reno is in the movie as well. He uses a Beretta 92 FS Inox, so the stainless 92.
That's pretty good casting as far as I'm concerned. Like an Italian gun by a French actor.
And that's like I think that's the only gun that he uses throughout the entire film.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't even pick up a long gun or anything, but makes good work of it throughout the movie. And then one of the cool ones, Gregor carries a Glock 17L, and at one point he fixes it up with a suppressor and this weird mounting system where he puts a Bushnell hollow sight on it.
Yeah, looks like it's one of the systems that works off of. Well, it doesn't have an accessory rail, so what? I don't know what it's clamped
Close
onto.
to the trigger guard, I'd imagine.
Yeah, but essentially one of those setups that affixes it to the sight, and the slide rides through the rail. But yeah, the Glock 17L. How long do they make these things? Because they don't make them anymore. Now they have I forget which, something in the 30s range is the Glock, practical tactical competition style.
And this was in 1998. It's I think it's a first gen. Or no,
I think it's a second gen.
Is it second?
I don't think they made a first gen L.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
I think all the first gens are just plain Jane Glock 17s.
And then, there's a Glock 19, a second gen as well. I always like the look of the second gen without the rail.
Yeah, it's a nice looking. The first gen looks really Spartan, and then the third gen was the first one of the finger grooves, and the finger grooves are very much maligned by just about everybody. And so, yeah, I think the second generation is kind of the most classic looking.
And then you have the Jericho 941 FB Compact, which is a gun that you don't really see in the movies too often.
You see it from time to, well, not the compact. You see a few full-size Jerichos every now and again, but the compact doesn't make a whole lot. And of course, that's a CZ75 clone that has the frame-mounted safety decocker like a Beretta.
And then Elliot Carver, a.k.a. Seamus in this movie, Jonathan Price, he's using a two-tone SIG P239. I've handled one of these, and I actually liked it a lot. I never shot one, but it felt good in the hand. And this movie was released in '98, and the 239 only came out in '96.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, they were using pretty like recent firearms in this film. And then, of course, Sean Bean is in the film. Probably one of the only films he doesn't get killed in.
Spoiler alert.
Sorry.
Sean Bean and Lance Henriksen, two actors that rarely make it to the end of their films.
You got a few others, a Taurus PT-945. Isn't that the same gun that Robert Downey Jr. carried, the nickel-plated sissy pistol?
It might be the exact same gun.
Yeah, we were talking about that. Like we said, the prop stores just all the same. So a lot of the times, you know, the Die Hard 92 is the same one that Mel Gibson
carries in Lethal Weapon. Yeah. And I've handled it.
Yes, you
have. I was at the NRA Museum. And so, and I got a media day there, one of the NRA shows. But yeah, the number of like Taurus PT-92s that are in movies, like those have got to be almost always the same gun, especially when you do like the chromed ones.
This movie has a lot of nods to James Bond. There are actually 3 actors in it that have been in Bond movies, but there's also kind of a 4th actor, the Walther P5.
Mm-hmm.
That was Bond's gun in Octopussy.
I am so surprised that I have never actually handled one of these. You would think one would show up in a gun case somewhere at the number of gun stores that I go tire kicking at.
I've heard, isn't it like kind of an updated Walther P38 internally or something?
It really is. It's a Walther P38 that has a shortened slide and shortened barrel. Actually, if you know the Walther idea, where it's got the barrels hanging out the front, they actually shortened the barrel and lengthened the slide, so it's got a more traditional slide on it. I don't know if it's open on the top or not, like a Beretta. The Beretta 92 is kind of an updated Walther P1 as well, or P38. And so it's got it's a P1 variant. What most people say is, you know, the alloy frame, but instead of the slide mounted decocker, again, the decocker safety like the Beretta, but again, it was the Walther that came up with that first. It's got a decocking lever, much similar to a Sig Sauer on the side of it. So it's just an interesting gun. But yeah, it uses heel magazine release, same magazines, but since it's a shortened butt, the notch is in a different place, so they're not the exact same magazines.
So the 3 actors, you've got Jonathan Pryce, who played Elliot Carver in Tomorrow Never Dies.
One of my favorites.
You've got Sean Bean, who plays in Goldeneye.
Yeah, Alec Trevelyan.
And then you have the guy that played Hugo Drax in Moonraker.
Mm-hmm.
He plays a bearded veterinarian. I can't remember his name. French guy.
Yeah.
But yeah,
he's in a bunch of stuff. That guy was also in. They actually had.
Day of the Jackal.
Yeah, but I was thinking about Munich. He's the father of the guy who's the villain in the worst Bond film ever made, the Quantum of Solace. I always thought that was amusing that Hugo Drax is the father of the other Bond villain in that one.
Trying to find his name here.
Oh, well, while we're here, I'm scrolling down. There's also, looks like it's mostly just prop house stuff, window dressing. There's doesn't look like it's actually used in the film. There's a mini Uzi, which we're handgun radio. That's close enough. And a VZ61 that is actually used. And if you want to go buy one right now, go to Checkpoint and you can get yourself a VZ61 handgun if you don't live in Massachusetts. I would so have one if I didn't live in Massachusetts. I don't know why I am so in love with this gun. Like, especially like in handgun form where you can't get a submachine gun. Ian was shooting a full auto one. I think he was up in Canada.
Yeah.
And he was actually surprised at how good it handled. He folded up the stock and he's like, okay, this is going to be a mess. I'm going to be all over the place. And he shot it. Actually, that shot really well. So I was surprised to see that as well.
And before we wrap up, the one that everybody always likes to talk about, and you wanted to include, of course,
have to.
Another Michael Mann movie, another movie with some fantastic gun handling.
And probably where Robert De Niro, because this was before Ronin, probably where Robert De Niro, because Robert De Niro, I believe, he got some extensive, everybody on this got some extensive gun training. I don't know if it was in a school or if just Michael Mann just hired some experts and they just set up a camp. But what we're talking about is Heat, 1995. Oh, and here's another great example. I was talking about the Zack Snyder remake of Dawn of the Dead, but this was actually one of the first movies where I was aware of good gun handling and good gun practice, and how much, like, when actors know how to handle their guns and are handling them properly, it really, really adds to the story as opposed to subtracts from it. Is starting off, we've got Lieutenant Vincent Hanna, played by Al Pacino, and he carries another Colt 1991 A1. This one's the officer's model, so this is the 3.5-inch barrel version. And actually, my friend Jay Grazio, he carried one of these for a while, and he absolutely was in love with it. So yeah, just a slightly lower cost version of the Officer ACP made by Colt. And and you see him frequently doing like press checks. Like there's a scene where he's riding up in an elevator and he does the thumb through the trigger guard press check that we talked about in Thief. And it's such a good scene as he pulls that he's riding up in an elevator to go confront somebody and pulls the gun out, does a press check, and then holsters the gun again. It just says so much. It says, all right, I'm not keeping the gun in my hand, but I'm worried something's going to happen. So let me just double check and make sure this gun is ready to rock and roll if things go bad.
Yeah, that gun throughout the movie. I mean, I love the holster he has for it too.
Yeah, it's a little paddle holster, I think.
Yeah, leather paddle holster or something. Which I don't normally like paddle holsters, but it works.
I mean, it works well for the idea of like if you got to take the holster off and go through. But yeah, it's a nice looking holster. We got another movie switcheroo. I didn't even realize this until I went to the IMFDB page, because almost all the shots where you clearly see Robert De Niro's gun, it's a Sig Sauer P220. But all the heavies in this one carry 45s. Caliber War was going on strong in the 90s. But he's carrying a H&K USP. Says here 9mm. I don't know if it's a 9mm or a 45. The one pictured in IMFDB is a 9mm, but again, you don't see it close enough, so it's hard to say. And I know in Michael Mann's scripts, they state very specifically what the gun the person's carrying, or at least make technical distinctions such as 45 caliber pistol. So yeah, he's got an H&K USP. Don't know if it's a 9 or a 45, but that's seen very, very briefly. There's one scene where it's his apartment where you can clearly see that, no, that is not a Sig Sauer. But most of the shots where you clearly see what Robert De Niro's carrying, it's a Sig Sauer.
Yeah, and then the scene where he's in the car blowing out the windshield at the assassin.
Yep.
That thing. I mean, oh my God, I can't imagine how loud that would be.
It's a good scene. Another kind of odd duck, but a neat gun is the Kevin Gage as Waingro. He carries a Star Megastar. That's in 45. And it just, again, it's even when you see an odd gun. Oh, it looks like he's got two different ones. He's carrying a blued one and a either stainless or chrome.
Yeah, in the beginning he has the blued one, and then towards the end in the hotel room he's got the stainless one.
Yeah, I wonder if that was intentional or just they were changed around. It must have been intentional. I guess can understand someone that's going to be hauling a lot of guns and working with some high-end criminals. He might have multiples of the same gun because 2 is 1 and 1 is none. But just it's a bit of an odd duck, but it fits very, very well with the character.
You don't normally see those guns. I mean, I've never seen one in person.
I've never seen one in person either.
Val Kilmer's carrying a Beretta Cheetah Beretta 85, which
Yep.
I have handled. Those are great little guns.
Yeah, it's a nice little size.
Yeah. I mean, 380, but still it holds quite a few rounds.
Yeah, well, that's the nice thing about it is it's a compact gun, it's a light gun, but it also holds quite a few. I mean, it's kind of on par with my CZ82, which is kind of a similar idea. Double action, single action, double stack, but simple blowback.
And then, of course, it's set in Los Angeles, so we've got the LAPD with the Beretta 92s as usual.
Yeah, that was the standard issue.
Tom Sizemore carries a Ruger KP90, which is also not a gun you see often in films. I mean, like a couple of them here and there, but not very common.
Was that what did
Lies.
Schwarzenegger carry in True Lies? He was
Yeah.
carrying a Ruger 45 in that one.
Yeah.
Was it the KP or?
I believe it was. Let's see. That's what Yep, it was.
Okay. For all we know, that might be the same gun. That gun made a bit more appearances than you might think, but it was also it was a super popular gun at the time. I mean, Ruger tried to get their gun to be the gun selected for the service gun over the Beretta. And
yeah, that's what Daniel was talking about.
I don't know if I mean, okay. Let's get down to brass tacks here. I don't like the Beretta 92 very much at all. I don't think it's a great gun. The Ruger, I gotta say, as a gun to give soldiers in rough conditions and all that, it's kind of the AK-47 of handguns.
It's a fine handgun. It's just a brick.
It is a brick, but boy, they run well. And like the Beretta, one of the big things I don't like is it's got that Walther locking block in it, and that locking block wears out, and that needs to be constantly handled with that. I've heard people say, "Oh yeah, no, you don't even need to change the springs on the Rugers."
And then you got your various revolvers in the movie: the Model 38 Bodyguard, Model 36 J-frame. The real stars of the film. Well, actually, one I want to talk about, the Steyr TMP machine pistol.
Yep.
That one has been seen in a few different movies. I remember first seeing it in a video game.
Yeah. It's not a super uncommon gun because a couple of different people have either imported them or built them up as pistols. Let's see. I'm going through IMFDB. True Lies, Heat, Long Kiss Goodnight. Oh, I love that movie. Have you seen that one?
I have not. I need to watch that one.
Oh, Space Truckers. Oh, geez, I need to just go over to that real quick. Have you seen Space Truckers?
No, I have not.
Oh man, it's just a goofy comedy sci-fi flick with
Dennis Hopper.
And it's entertaining. It's got Charles Dance's in it too. I'm in love with Charles Dance. He's a ridiculous actor. He needs to be in more stuff. But yeah, there's a Steyr TP. There was also they don't have it in there. That was the first time, they don't have it listed. It's the first time I've ever seen an AR pistol. He pulls an AR pistol out of somewhere. Vector CP1 makes an appearance because, of course, it's the future. Vector CP1 and Calico M950. So the 9mm Calico pistol, of course, because it's the future. Just a really goofy looking gun.
Charles Dance is the guy from Last Action Hero with that awesome revolver.
Yes.
The shotguns, I love the scene in Heat where Tom Sizemore just dumps the rounds into that truck.
Yep.
With that Benelli M3.
Yeah, no, Sizemore is kind of the heavy in that, and he always carries some serious things. He's got an FAL paratrooper at the beginning. He's got the Benelli M3. He's got not a Jericho, but the what's the Israeli AK?
Oh, the Galil.
Yeah, he's got a Galil as part of that.
The other stars of the movie are the Colt, the ARs, and the Galil, and all the assault rifles they have in the big bank robbery shootout. I've heard, I don't know if it's confirmed, but allegedly footage of Val Kilmer expertly reloading his rifle under fire during the bank robbery shootout has been shown to American Special Forces trainees with the message, "This is how I want you to reload."
Yeah, I have heard that as well. It's absolutely said in one of the making of featurettes on Heat. by Val Kilmer. I can't verify if it's said or not, but that's definitely not an apocryphal statement. It's just whether or not Val Kilmer heard it correctly or not. Another long gun we got to talk about is Vincent Hanna ends up carrying an FNC at the very end, which is kind of neat. Just a little something new, something different. Everybody else is carrying, M4 variants of some sort, and he's got this FNC. And interestingly enough, it was the gun that he used was a full auto, and the overall props department, the script was saying it was a full auto gun, but he only shoots it semi-auto, and that is an in-character choice. Is that Vincent Hanna would be. Since there's so many civilians running around, he would be making absolutely sure that he was every round was going where he needed to be. And so he was only firing single shots with that gun.
Man, that is such a cool gun.
Yeah, it's just a nice looking gun. I mean, it's essentially an AK flipped upside down. It's, very similar to the SIG 556. I've get to see what the actual difference between that and that. They're very, very similar guns, mechanically speaking. But yeah, a lot of cool long guns in it as well. But this is Handgun Radio.
Excellent. So I think that about wraps it up. Anything else you want to add before we close out?
I love it when movies have good gun handling. It just makes so much more sense.
And be sure to go check out the Guns of Hollywood podcast too, because they have a lot of episodes that talk about a bunch of different movies. We're just touching on some of the ones we've watched recently. So
yeah, and I don't think we're stepping on their toes, because they pick a movie and they go into it in depth, and they talk about both the movie and the firearms used. So right. it's a nice podcast.
Excellent. So with that, we'll head into the wrap up section and close out the show. Don't forget to shop Brownells using our affiliate link. Head to firearmsradio.tv and click the affiliate link in the upper right hand corner. Be sure to go like Handgun Radio on Facebook and share it with your friends, and leave us a review on iTunes. Listen to all the great shows on the Firearms Radio Network, and be sure to check out the Firearms Radio Network on YouTube. And Weird, as always, thanks for coming on, and where can people find you?
You can find me at my blog, which is weirdworld.com, and my other podcast is the Assorted Calibers Podcast.
And there'll be links to those in the show notes, so thanks again.
Oh, no problem.
And until next week, have fun and safe shooting.